Hello, I'm Alex Burton, and this is the Business File. Consider for a moment an activity of business that is probably more familiar to more people than any other. What would you say it is? Well, if you said advertising or promotion, I'd agree. How many times in a single day are you exposed to some kind of promotional message? Well, and just to freshen your memory, we've put together a short piece designed to illustrate the prevalence of promotional messages all around us. You can see that promotion plays a considerable role in the life of a business. Why? Well, because no matter how useful, need-satisfying, or superior a product might be, businesses have to tell their customers that the product exists and point out its merits before anyone is likely to want it or buy it. You simply can't sell what people don't know about. So how do potential customers learn about a company's goods and services? Through a well-developed promotional strategy. Promotional strategy is one of the elements of the marketing mix. A major function of business, marketing is a group of interrelated activities designed to identify consumer needs and develop, promote, price, and distribute goods and services to satisfy these needs at a profit. Now, the way a company goes about promoting products and services, its promotional strategy is the communication element in its overall marketing mix. And in our program today, we're going to visit with two professors of marketing who will help us explore the roles and objectives of promotional strategy, as well as major elements in it. And then we'll visit with a marketing manager who will show us how his firm's promotional strategy helps make a product we're all familiar with a success in the marketplace. But now I'd like to introduce two of our guests. First, we have Professor Jerry DeHay, Professor of Marketing and Head of the Marketing Department at Arlington State University in Stephenville, Texas. Welcome to the Business File.
Thank you, Alex.
And joining in our discussion from East Lansing, Michigan, is Professor Jerome McCarthy. Dr. McCarthy is Professor of Marketing at Michigan State University. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, well, thank you, and welcome, and nice to have you here.
My first question is for Professor DeHay. Professor, what is the importance of promotional strategy in the marketing mix?
The primary role of promotion is that of communication. It is very important once you have developed a product and you have it ready to go and you have put the other pieces of your marketing mix together, you've got to be able to communicate to people what you have, what it will do, where it is, how they can get it, all those sorts of things in order to make the whole thing flow. Without that communication, obviously it doesn't do any good. You can have the best product in the world. If people don't know about it, there's no way to sell it.
Dr. McCarthy, since promotional strategy is so essential to selling a product, what are its objectives, the objectives of promotional strategy?
We have three rather general objectives that are kind of overriding. One is informing, two persuading, and three reminding. And early on in, say, in the product life cycle, we have to tell them about it. We have to inform them. A little later on, we have to persuade them that our marketing mix really is better than somebody else's marketing mix. And if we've done a really good job, we'll have to remind them, because otherwise they may forget or somebody else will tell them about what a great job they're doing. But usually we have to get even more specific than these general objectives under the umbrella of these general objectives. You might want to inform them specifically about a product feature, or that this product is now available in your retail store. And the more specific the objectives, the easier it is to plan the rest of the promotional strategy. When you get into the persuading area, you may have to persuade them that our product is better than brand XYZ of somebody else.
Dr. DeHay, as Dr. McCarthy just said, the objectives of a promotional strategy are to inform, persuade, and remind the customer of a company's product or service. Now, with those as the objectives, is there anything else that a business might accomplish with its promotions?
We also would like in promotion to accomplish what we might call reinforcement in terms of establishing in the minds of people even after they bought the product that they've made a good decision.
Back to you, Dr. McCarthy. How does a business accomplish its objectives? What promotional tools does it have to use?
Okay, well, the broad basic tools are personal selling, mass selling, which is really advertising and publicity, and sales promotion.
4 basic tools then. Personal selling, advertising, sales promotion, and publicity. I'd like to go to Dr. DeHay. Would you take a moment and describe what is involved in each of those, and would you start with advertising?
Well, advertising is defined as that part of the mix which is the paid, non-personal presentation of a good or service through a medium by an identified sponsor. The primary purpose of advertising being simply to inform, communicate with a large audience over a very short span of time.
All right. What is meant by personal selling? How does it fit in?
Personal selling, on the other hand, is, just as it would sound like it is, face-to-face personal presentation of a good or service, usually on a one-on-one basis from the seller to the buyer. The idea here being that you're going to get a chance for some interaction. You get to ask questions. When you're watching a commercial on TV, advertising, you don't get a chance to ask any questions, get any responses. In personal selling, this offers you that kind of an interface.
Then you could say that personal selling is a kind of a face-to-face promotion, whereas Dr. McCarthy just talked about advertising as being really mass promotion. So where does that leave the last two, sales promotion and publicity? Would you say something about each of those and give us an idea of their place in the promotional mix?
Sales promotion is a whole set of activities that are not defined as advertising or personal selling, but are designed to help support each of those. And this includes things like point-of-purchase displays, signs, coupons, various kind of promotional activities that a company may carry out to help supplement their other promotional programs in advertising and personal selling specifically. And then publicity is the non-paid presentation of information in a medium. Typically, we're thinking in terms of news items, feature stories, and articles, and so forth that present a favorable impression of our products or of our company to the public.
So now we know what's involved in those 4 tools. Dr. McCarthy, I'd like to ask you, what are the purposes of each one of those promotional tools, and how best can each one be utilized?
Well, the purposes in a general sense are to accomplish those broad objectives, but each of the informing, persuading, reminding. But each of them has some advantages and disadvantages. For example, if you want to inform somebody about a very specific topic, maybe you have to send a salesperson who can zero in and explain the specific features and get the feedback from the customer about what they want to know. If you have a more general message, maybe you can use advertising. If you're trying to reach thousands of people, it's very expensive to send salesmen around to call on every one of them and tell them the same old, more or less standardized story. So advertising can reach a much larger audience. Now, sales promotion is designed to do some rather specialized jobs that either the salesman probably shouldn't have to do, or it would be expensive to use a salesman to do, and it maybe is more specialized than advertising can do. Well, for example, if we might use coupons. If we really want some people to come in and buy a product, maybe we give them a price concession. A little coupon that says 10 cents off or $1 off, because that's the specific objective is to do this. And sales promotion is designed to create these special tools to do very specific jobs.
Okay, you've said something about personal selling, advertising, and sales promotion, their purposes. Let's not forget about publicity. What about it?
Publicity is an area that we don't do as much with because it's a little harder to talk about, and also we don't always have the chance to use it. Publicity is of value when you have something really good, really new. Publicity is free in a sense. You don't have to pay for the media costs. If you have a really good new product or a really good idea, you can get the newspapers or the magazines or TV to talk about your product, and you may get a lot more promotion out of publicity than out of advertising. but you have to have something newsworthy. Otherwise, there's nothing to talk about.
Okay, from what you and Dr. DeHay have told us, I think we can see the advantages of each of these 4 promotional elements or tools. But I'd like to follow up by asking you, Dr. McCarthy, how are those elements used, I mean, in an effective way by a marketing manager?
Well, what he has to do is develop a blend. Depending on the objectives, you have to decide how to use these elements. If you have a very difficult, say, informing job that requires calling on individual people, then there'll be a heavy blend in favor of personal selling. So it's a blend that has to be created depending on your objectives.
So how does a manager decide what kind of a blend to use? Are there specific factors that influence how he might put those 4 elements together? Dr. McCarthy?
Oh, yes. It starts way back with the target market. You know, who are they and what do we have to tell them? What do they need to know? Consumer goods probably will have a heavier emphasis on on mass selling because there are more of them, more widespread. In the industrial goods area, there are many fewer customers. And we may have very, very specific messages we have to tell them. And that might mean we'll have to send personal salespeople around. So it's related to the kinds of goods, but it's also related to the stage in the product life cycle. Earlier on, there may be more difficult jobs to be carried out, like informing them that we're even here and that we have something. And it may be a lot easier in the industrial goods area to send some salesmen around to tell them about this. But very often, you need a little bit of mass selling also if you have something really good, because otherwise a salesman has got an awful lot of work to do just to say, hey, we're here, we've got something. So we'd use a blend.
I'd like to pursue that with another question, and this will have to be my final one for right now. I want to direct it back to Dr. DeHay. Dr. McCarthy has just talked about the target market, the type of goods you're marketing, and the use of the product life cycle as factors that will influence a promotional blend. Is that it, or are there additional factors that a marketing manager is going to have to consider?
There are probably several things that a marketing manager would want to take into consideration in considering what kind of promotion mix to put together to be the most strategic mix in order to accomplish his objectives. Basically, you've got to look, first of all, at what the level of demand is. If you've got a very favorable level of demand, that's going to make it easier, obviously, to do anything. You also have to look at how hard or how easy will it be to differentiate your products in the minds of the consumer, because it's that picture they have in their minds that's important, and that's what you're trying to do with promotion. Also, you have to take into consideration the kind of resources that you have to work with, the characteristics of your product. Also, you have to take into mind how much money do you have to spend to support your promotional program, because obviously some kinds of promotion are going to be much more expensive than others.
And I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it right there, but only for the time being. Both our guests have agreed to stand by and answer some final questions during our wrap-up. Right now, we're going to take a closer look at the media it takes to deliver the promotional messages. Each medium has its strengths and its weaknesses. Let's look at the media options.
Depot, your number one source for
A national or regional TV ad will reach a large number of people. It can have persuasive impact and is relatively low in cost per viewer. However, it has disadvantages. The minimum cost of TV advertising can be high, and commercials reach a general audience rather than one you've targeted. Also, you have to get your message across in 30 or 60 seconds, a short period of time. A daily newspaper has the advantage of covering a more concentrated market than TV. Ads are relatively easy to change day to day, and they can include pass-alongs like discount coupons. But with newspapers, you are still reaching a general rather than target audience. There's heavy competition with other ads filling the paper, and creativity is somewhat limited. In a magazine, you have a lot more creative leeway, full color, and slick paper. Magazines generally stay around longer than other print media, and you can do a better job reaching a target audience. As for disadvantages, you often have to submit ads weeks before they appear, and the majority of magazines come out only once a month or once a week at most. Direct mail. Its big advantage over other media is an ability to hit a precise target audience. You don't compete alongside of other ads, and you can take a personal approach with the message. Direct mail, though, has rather low credibility for a lot of people, and there's a strong temptation to simply throw it away. How about radio? Compared to TV, radio is low cost. It reaches a fairly select audience, and there's an immediacy to its message. But radio depends on sound alone. There's no visual impact. The airways are filled with commercials competing with each other, and it's awful easy to switch stations. You're not going to switch stations on a billboard. It has the advantage of large, impressive size and delivers its message over a long period of time. However, billboards are subject to legal restrictions. The message has to be very brief, and there's little way to target an audience. To this point, we've gotten the basics of promotional strategy, and now we're going to examine promotional strategy from the point of view of a company that's put a lot of promotions together, and many of them I'm sure you are familiar with. The company is Frito-Lay, and our guest at the corporate headquarters in Dallas is Earl Shirley. Thanks, Mr. Shirley, for taking this time to be with us.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it, too.
Mr. Shirley, as you're the product manager for tortilla chips with responsibility for 3 particular brands, I'd like to focus our discussions on development of your promotional strategy in the marketing mix and concentrate on one of your brands. Which product should we talk about?
Today we're going to talk about one of the most popular brands in the country, Doritos tortilla chips.
Okay, let's begin by developing some background information. What about the target market? Would you define that for us?
Doritos has a very broad target audience, or target market. Almost everyone in the country buys and eats Doritos during the course of a year. Almost everyone likes it. It's a very popular brand, very large brand. We focus our marketing efforts against teenagers and young adults because those are our heaviest users and also the users where we see the greatest volume growth opportunity.
Once you had defined the particular target market you were going after, how did that dictate your overall promotional strategy?
Well, once we had identified that teenagers and young adults were our greatest opportunity, we examined our promotional strategy to make sure we were marketing Doritos in the way that was going to be most meaningful and compelling to this target group. This target group is different, say, than the female homemaker, and they respond to different sorts of marketing programs and marketing activities.
What kind of things do they respond to?
They watch a lot of TV. They're very responsive to advertising, and they respond to the things that are important in their lives. Music, sports, social activities are all very important to them. Therefore, we decided it was very important to associate Doritos in a believable way with these activities that were important in the lives of these target consumers.
So in order to do that, to reach that market, what elements of promotional strategy do you use for Doritos?
Well, we use primarily advertising, promotions, personal selling, and publicity.
Mr. Shirley, I'd like to take those elements one at a time and discuss them. First, what's the role of personal selling in your promotional mix?
Well, personal selling to us essentially means our sales force selling to the retail trade. Obviously, to be successful, our product has to be available to our consumers. We need shelf space in the stores, a great deal of shelf space, and we need promotional displays. Most of the personal selling revolves around making sure the trade is giving us the space we need and the display support we need.
It's easy to see why shelf space in the stores would be critical to a product like Doritos. But what about publicity? What role does it play in the promotional mix?
We see publicity as another way of associating ourselves with things that are important to our target consumers' lives. Music, for instance, we do a great deal of, we sponsor concerts by various popular groups, a way of associating our name with things that are important to our consumers. Sports are another thing that's very important. We sponsor bicycle races and jogging and this type of thing too, again, to associate our brand name with things that are important to our consumers.
Publicity has been called a way of getting free advertising. So what about advertising you have to pay for? What place does it have in your promotional strategy?
Advertising is our most important element of the promotion strategy. Our target watches a lot of television. They respond to advertising, and we feel we have a brand that we can talk about very effectively on television in advertising. What we seek to do in our advertising is, again, associate Doritos with those things that are very important to our consumers. We have to do this in a believable way, of course, but we think Doritos is a popular item with our target, and therefore there's a natural association with other things that are important to their lives.
That leaves the fourth element, sales promotion. Would you discuss its role in your promotional strategy?
We rely a great deal on sales promotion, both to get displays in the store and to, again, associate our product, Doritos, with the important things in the lives of our target consumers. For instance, one of our most successful promotions is this football-themed promotion, which you see Doritos is associated in what I think is a very believable way with football, which is obviously the most popular sport in the country and very popular with our target consumers of teens and young adults.
Football. Well, what other kinds of sales promotions have you done?
We usually, under our themed promotions, we have contests or games that the consumer can play and win prizes, or we offer things we call self-liquidators, where the consumer can send in proofs of purchase from our product and a small amount of money and get a premium item at a much lower cost than they could buy it at retail. For instance, in this football promotion, we're offering these official NFL footballs at a price much lower than you could buy it at retail, and it's a nice commemorative item and a very nice football, to say the least.
Mr. Shirley, now that we have heard you talk about your promotional strategy, we thought it would be a good idea to take a look at it. So earlier, our camera crew went out to see Doritos promotions at work, and we've put together this piece. One key to Doritos' promotional strategy is direct selling.
All right.
Salesmen on the route must convince their retail customers to give Doritos and other Frito-Lay products good shelf location and ample space.
If we had another display, for instance, up front, we would do even better in sales.
They also sell their customers on participating in some of their sales promotions, including the use of special displays.
Okay, with 99 cents now, these will be sold out pretty quick.
Doritos managers feel point-of-purchase advertising is essential to their product success. Outside the store, Frito-Lay uses publicity in the form of company-sponsored events. This brings local news coverage. But the most important element in the promotional mix is advertising, especially on regional and national television.
Now charged with even more nacho cheese flavor. Definitely.
All right, Mr. Shirley, before we go, time for one final question. What happens to your promotional mix that we've just looked at? Over time, does it evolve or change?
On an established brand such as Doritos, which has been in the market for over 10 years now, it usually doesn't from year to year. Advertising campaigns, of course, will change, and promotions will change depending on the season. But the basic mixture of the different elements usually doesn't change very much. Of course, a new brand or a new line extension of an established brand, of course, would have a different mix of advertising versus promotion, advertising being very important to establish the awareness of the brand with the consumer.
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. I want to thank you for having us at Frito-Lay and being on the program.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much also.
Now, in the time we have left for our wrap-up, we're going back to our two original guests, Dr. Jerome McCarthy and Dr. Jerry DeHay. Thank you both for standing by. What I want to ask you to do now is put this whole idea of promotion in perspective. During the program, we've talked about final consumers or buyers of products as target markets. Dr. McCarthy, what other targets can a business aim at to try to get its goods to the ultimate customer?
There are middlemen, there are wholesalers, there are retailers that have to be reached. And so what we have to do is develop a strategy as to how we are going to move the goods through the channel.
So we have two targets, middlemen and consumers. What approaches can we use to reach them?
There's two basic approaches we can use. One is pushing the products through the channel, and the other is pulling. Pushing basically consists of the normal promotional blend of a little bit of advertising, a little bit of selling to tell the people in the channels what we've got.
Dr. DeHay, would you comment on that? What's the idea behind the pushing strategy?
The idea being that we are pushing our product down through the various levels of distribution. And so if we were a manufacturer and we're selling directly to a retailer, let's say, then we can advertise directly to that retailer and promote directly to the retailer without promoting to the consumer. And then we leave it up to the retailer to promote the product further on to the consumer without any involvement from us.
What impact does the pushing strategy have on promotional strategy?
Well, it has a very significant impact in that it changes the type of media probably they're going to use certainly will have an impact on what our promotion mix will be.
Okay, that's the pushing strategy. One final question, and this is to Dr. McCarthy. A pulling strategy. Why use it? What's involved with it?
If there's lots of competition in a channel, however, there are a lot of people already there with similar products, then it may be necessary to try to pull the product through the channel, which basically means skipping the middlemen, more or less, going directly to the consumers, getting them to ask for this product, and then the middlemen may have to carry it. This may include sending coupons to the door, samples to the door, some way to get the final consumers to go to their retailers and ask for this product. That would be the pulling strategy.
And that's where we're going to have to end our program. Thank you, Dr. McCarthy, for your time and your comments.
Well, you're certainly welcome.
Dr. DeHay, thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you, Alex.
That's our look at promotional strategy, an essential ingredient in a business's marketing mix. I'm Alex Burton, and this has been The Business File.
The preceding program is part of a college credit course.